Welcome to Conspiracist.
Great to be here.
Today, we're undertaking a deep dive into a really persistent and complex hypothesis.
Right. The idea that governments, around the world might have intentionally concealed evidence about alien hybrid theories.
Exactly. We've got a lot of material to get through from, ancient history looking at the possibility of life out there, all the way to modern stories, abduction narratives.
And these specific claims about hybrid beings. Yeah.
And our mission today, just to be clear for everyone listening, is to keep this strictly professional. We need an objective stance.
Absolutely. We're evaluating the reasoning, the supposed evidence, without any humor or, just dismissing it out of hand.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe looking back at how people even started thinking about life beyond Earth.
That seems like the right place. It's actually fascinating how far back these ideas go. We can trace it to ancient Greece.
Really? Like who?
Well, philosophers like Anaximander, Leucippus, Democritus, they talked about a plurality of worlds. It was based on their ideas about atoms, and this sense of infinite space.
Huh. Atoms leading to aliens.
Kind of, yeah. Metrodorus of Chios, he had this great quote. Something like, "It seems absurd that in a large field only one stalk should grow, and that in an infinite space only one world exists."
Wow. That's pretty direct.
Ah.
So this idea of not being alone, it's not new at all.
Not at all. It's been echoing for millennia, really, this fundamental question.
And things must have shifted when our view of the cosmos changed, right, with Copernicus and all that.
Definitely. Accepting that the Earth wasn't the center, that was huge. Giordano Bruno, well, he paid a heavy price for believing in multiple worlds.
He certainly did.
But then you have Kepler and Galileo. Their discoveries, they gave actual observational weight to this bigger universe idea.
And Kepler himself speculated, didn't he? I remember reading something about a letter to Galileo.
Yes, that's a key moment. Even with the risks, Kepler looked at Jupiter's moons and basically said, they must be for Jupiter's inhabitants, not us.
His reasoning was pretty straightforward.
It was. These 4 little moons exist for Jupiter, not for us. Each planet is served by its own satellites. He deduced Jupiter was inhabited with the highest degree of probability.
It really shows that human tendency, doesn't it, to see life and purpose wherever there's complexity.
It does. But, looking at our sources, this belief wasn't always backed by solid evidence. Much later, William Whewell pushed back.
How so?
He basically argued people believed in other worlds in spite of physical reasons. He stressed that just because Earth is part of a bigger cosmos doesn't automatically mean there's life everywhere else.
So a dose of skepticism entered the picture. The need for actual proof.
Exactly. A shift towards needing something tangible, not just philosophical possibility.
Okay, fast forward a bit. Percival Lowell and Mars. That's a famous one.
Oh, absolutely. Lowell's observations of Mars, or what he thought were observations of canals.
Right, the canals.
Led him to these really detailed theories about a Martian civilization. He imagined them as, bigger, stronger, older, wiser, quite specific.
It's amazing what grew from those, ambiguous observations.
But it wasn't universally accepted. Alfred Russel Wallace, co-discoverer of evolution, remember, he had a strong critique.
What was his argument?
Well, he pointed out the lack of water on Mars, for one, but also he stressed just how incredibly low the odds were for a technological species like us to evolve anywhere.
He put a number on it, didn't he?
He did. Something like 100 million of millions to 1 against a being like humans evolving. It really highlights that tension, Our imagination wanting cosmic company versus the sheer statistical unlikelihood.
Okay, so that sets the historical stage. This long arc of wondering, speculating, sometimes arguing. How does this connect to the more modern, specific claims about abductions and hybrids?
Well, that's where things get much more personal and narrative-driven. The idea of contact or maybe even interference.
These paleo abductions people talk about sometimes, are those relevant here?
They come up, yeah. Stories from before the big UFO waves that some researchers now look back on and interpret as maybe early abduction accounts.
Like what kind of stories?
There's one from 1896. Colonel H.G. Shaw claimed he was harassed by these tall, thin humanoids trying to kidnap him.
1896, wow.
And then in 1953, an article by Leroy Thorpe directly asked if flying saucers were grabbing humans for study, like zoological specimens or even vivisection.
That's quite blunt.
It is. And then there were the disappearances of Carl Hunrath and Wilbur Wilkinson in 1955. Speculation arose that maybe aliens had taken them. These older tales provide a kind of backdrop.
Interesting precursors. So when we get to the more familiar modern abduction reports, what are the common threads people describe?
Well, the classic narrative often starts with being levitated, somehow taken into a craft, sometimes described as moving through walls or windows.
Through solid objects, right? And then inside.
Then comes what's usually called the examination phase. This often involves beings described as, well, taller than others, sometimes present. The focus seems to be on reproduction, the nervous system, the head.
Medical-like procedures?
Sort of, but also distinctly not like human medicine, according to the reports. People mention a lack of gloves, no pills, no IVs, not even basic things like tongue depressors. It's different.
And it doesn't always stop at just the physical examination, does it?
No. Often there are descriptions of subsequent procedures, things like being shown images on screens, they call that imaging, or having mental images projected directly into their minds, which is termed envisioning, sometimes even participating in scenarios like role-playing called staging.
Staging, like illusions.
That's how it's often interpreted, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, really crucial for our topic today, is the phase known as child presentation.
Right. This seems central to the hybrid idea, what happens in that phase, reportedly.
This is where abductees say they are shown children. And these children appear to be, well, hybrids. Part human, part alien. Often the grays are mentioned.
They look like a mix.
Apparently showing characteristics of both. But it's important to mention some research, specifically by folklorist Thomas Bullard, found this child presentation element seems to be a later development. An innovation, he called it, in the abduction narrative structure.
So maybe not part of the earliest accounts, but it became prominent later.
Exactly. It suggests the narrative itself might have evolved over time.
So this concept of human-alien hybrids gets really embedded in these abduction stories, especially with the child presentation part. It's also fascinating how hybridization pops up in fiction, too.
Oh, definitely. The source material draws a line to the Alien movies.
How so?
The whole idea of the black goo pathogen in the prequels, how it takes on traits from its host. Some fans call it a DNA reflex. It's sort of analogous to the hybrid concept.
Like the runner alien in Alien 3, taking traits from the dog or ox host.
Precisely. Or even the human xenomorph hybrid in Alien Resurrection. Remember that. Its pale skin was specifically attributed to the human genetic element in the story.
And there are fan theories, too, right? Like for the upcoming Alien, Romulus, suggesting the creature might look like an engineer because the goo encountered them first.
Yeah, that's mentioned. These fictional examples, obviously they aren't proof of anything real, but they show how the idea of interspecies mixing resonates culturally.
It's a powerful theme. Like in the X-Files, too, with the Syndicate trying to create hybrids.
Right. Their whole project was about creating a human-alien hybrid to survive colonization. It's a recurring trope, this deliberate creation or consequence of alien interaction.
Okay, so that brings us squarely to the core claim we're examining. Intentional government concealment was presented as evidence for that, for hiding alien hybrid reality.
Well, one angle mentioned is this cryptoterrestrial hypothesis. It came up in a Harvard study context.
Cryptoterrestrial, meaning?
Meaning aliens might not be from other stars, but already here, hidden. Maybe underground, maybe on the moon nearby, or possibly even integrated into society somehow, perhaps as descendants of some ancient, non-human terrestrial civilization.
That's a very different scenario than spaceships arriving.
It is. It reframes the whole presence question.
What about more direct claims about hiding actual hybrids?
Our sources mention claims attributed to an alleged ex-CIA agent, assertions that half-human, half-alien hybrids actually exist.
Okay, but how reliable is that kind of claim?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? These are often anecdotal, usually lack independent verification. The credibility of the source is a huge factor and often difficult to assess.
And then there's the government's known interest in UFOs, or UAPs as they're called now. Things like Project Blue Book, the new ARO office. How does that fit in?
Well, the existence of these investigations is fact. Governments have looked into these phenomena. But connecting that investigation to a cover-up of alien hybrids is an interpretation. Believers might argue these projects are just the public face, hiding deeper secrets, or that significant findings are classified.
While the publicly released findings often point to conventional explanations, like misidentification or natural phenomena.
Often, yes. So, the link between official UAP interest and proof of a hybrid cover-up is speculative. It relies on assuming there's something significant being hidden.
It sounds like a lot of the evidence for concealment involves interpreting ambiguous information or relying on questionable sources rather than, say, a leaked document proving hybrid existence.
That's often the case, yes. Which naturally leads us to consider other ways to understand why these beliefs are so persistent. Psychological factors, sociocultural influences.
The psychocultural hypothesis.
Exactly. This idea suggests that UFO reports, even abduction narratives, could potentially arise just from our culture and psychology, without any actual aliens needing to be involved.
How would that work?
One factor discussed is fantasy proneness. Some individuals have a richer fantasy life, described as not psychotic, not crazy, just a little different. They might be more inclined to interpret unusual personal experiences through a pre-existing cultural lens, like an alien abduction script.
And the culture itself provides that script, doesn't it? Little green men are almost a cliche in some places.
Absolutely. That cultural familiarity makes the idea readily available as an explanation for something strange or ambiguous.
Cognitive biases must play a role too, seeing faces in clouds, that kind of thing.
For sure. Pareidolia, seeing patterns and randomness, could make someone see a structured craft in, say, a formation of lights or clouds. And apophenia, finding meaningful connections between unrelated things, can help build those patterns into a bigger narrative, maybe even a conspiracy.
What about memory? Abduction accounts often involve trauma and fragmented recall.
That's a huge area. The sources link potential false memories to abduction reports. Think about something like sleep paralysis.
That feeling of being awake but unable to move, sometimes with hallucinations.
Precisely. It can be terrifying. And if someone experiences that, their mind might try to make sense of it afterwards by constructing a narrative. And the culturally available narrative might just be alien abduction.
So the frightening experience gets confabulated, maybe into a story that fits.
That's one prominent theory, yeah. Research suggests sleep paralysis with those vivid hypnopompic hallucinations. The sensory stuff as you wake or fall asleep could be misinterpreted as the start of an abduction.
And researchers have even tried to simulate aspects of this.
Yes, a 2021 study suggested that elements common in abduction stories, like paralysis and fear, could be somewhat emulated during lucid dreams, showing some overlap in the subjective experience.
It's also suggested the sheer scariness of the abduction narrative contributes to its spread, like urban legends.
That's plausible. Fearful stories are compelling, memorable, and the specific look of the Greys, big head, large eyes, some have theorized that this acts as a kind of supernormal stimulus for intelligence, making us more inclined to believe they're advanced beings.
Are there psychological traits linked to believing in conspiracies generally that might apply here?
Yes, the material mentions a few predictors identified in research. Things like a lower sense of personal control over one's life, a stronger belief that the world is generally a dangerous place.
Yep.
Certain traits related to schizotypy, like being overly suspicious or having unusual perceptions, and also something called bullshit receptivity.
Which is?
Basically, the tendency to find profound meaning in statements that are actually vague, abstract, or even nonsensical. It could make someone more susceptible to grand, unproven theories.
That's quite a list of potential contributing factors. It's also mentioned that some see parallels between modern abductions and older stories.
Right. Some writers point out similarities between the structure and feel of abduction accounts and, say, pre-20th century reports of demonic manifestations or encounters with fairies or other supernatural entities.
Suggesting maybe the underlying type of experience, or how we interpret it, has common threads across different cultural contexts.
That's the idea. The cultural dressing changes demons, fairies, aliens, but maybe the core psychological experience or trigger shares similarities.
All of this really drives home the need for careful evaluation, doesn't it? When you're faced with these kinds of extraordinary claims about hybrids and cover-ups.
Absolutely critical. We have to look at the source. Who is making the claim? Is it relevant? Is the evidence actually sufficient to support such a big conclusion? Is it comprehensive or leaving things out? And crucially, is it reliable?
Thinking is power indeed. So applying those standards specifically to alien hybrids, what's the status in terms of, say, scientific validation?
Well, our sources are pretty clear on this. There's a noticeable lack of peer-reviewed scientific papers specifically confirming the existence of alien hybrids.
So no studies published in reputable journals saying, here's the proof.
Not in the mainstream scientific literature, no. There might be discussions in fringe journals or online forums. Places like Reddit's Raelian bodies are mentioned as discussion points, but concerns are often raised there, too, about the peer review process or credibility.
And the burden of proof
Lies squarely on those making the extraordinary claim. If someone presents remains claimed to be alien or hybrid, the scientific onus is on them to provide compelling, verifiable evidence.
We also see connections made to things like the ancient astronaut theory sometimes.
Right, which is generally considered pseudo-archaeology. It often mixes factual elements with speculation or fiction and appears mainly in fringe media, not academic discourse.
And there are ethical concerns too, aren't there? Particularly if human remains get caught up in these theories.
Definitely. Using human remains, especially potentially misidentified ones, to promote unsubstantiated alien theories raises serious ethical questions about respect, dehumanization, and objectification.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, we've traced the idea extraterrestrial life from ancient philosophy through early telescopic speculation, encountered the rise of modern abduction narratives with their specific elements like examinations and child presentations.
We've looked at how the hybrid concept appears in those narratives and in pop culture, examined the claims of government concealment, and the types of evidence presented, like the crypto-terrestrial idea or anecdotal reports.
And then spent significant time on the psychological and sociocultural explanations. Fantasy proneness, cognitive biases, sleep paralysis, memory issues, cultural scripts, predictors of conspiracy belief.
All leading back to the vital importance of critically evaluating evidence using clear criteria and noting the current lack of scientific validation for alien hybrids.
It's really crucial as you listen to weigh all this information carefully. Consider those psychological factors that can shape how we interpret things, and always look for that reliable, verifiable evidence, especially when the claims are so extraordinary.
It's a complex tapestry of history, belief, psychology, and the enduring question of whether we're alone.
Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.